Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, if you want to up-level your business, this is the episode for you. We're talking to my friend Michelle with two L's because my wife is Michelle with one L. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you, Joe Graham. If you don't know Joe Graham, you need to know Joe Graham. But this young lady, you've probably seen her everywhere. South by Southwest, NBC. I wrote it all down. NBC, ABC, Fox, Entrepreneur Magazine, two-time top-selling author, two of my favorite books of all time. Plus, she also has a heart of service and she cares about people. So we're going to be talking about that in a minute. But Michelle, welcome to the show. I'm so grateful to be able to grab 30 minutes of your time.
Yeah, same, my friend. Thank you. It's so great that we were connected through Joe. I thank him. I'm excited to be here with your viewers today and beyond today, because the beauty of streaming is that people will find this message at exactly the right time. And we don't even know what that is today, right? Let's dive right in.
And thank you for being a sister in Christ, by the way. That's the most important thing. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're here on purpose and for purpose.
So the first question right off the get is, because your life hasn't been all rainbows, Skittles, unicorns. So what is your definition of resiliency?
Oh my gosh. So resiliency for me is not just about bouncing back from setbacks, but really about adapting, growing, and thriving eventually in the face of adversity, right? I always think of like resiliency as my inner superhero that helps me bounce back even when life is throwing crap at me. Those curveballs, the obstacles, whatever it is, it's like I get to be like, wait a minute, I've got this inner superhero. It's called resistance. That if I just call on it, it's already there. I've just got to call it forward and move myself into whatever those things are. And then having this thought that I can adapt, grow, and thrive through setbacks or challenges or obstacles that are in front of me certainly helps as well. And I think for me, Richard, like the two things that go together is resistance, right, comes, and you've got to activate that resilience. But most importantly, persistence and resilience go together, right? Because I think that when we tap into this ability to go after this, pull our inner superhero out, the resiliency piece, we also have to bring in the partner of persistence, which is, what are we going to do in terms of like taking action, move, change a thought, move a muscle, whatever those things are in the face of adversity and the curveballs that are being thrown our way, to be able to pull out the sidekick, right? That never gives up. It's like Batman and Robin, that unyielding spirit that says, I can keep being nudged forward, keep taking that first next step one day at a time, whatever that looks like, and bring my persistence along to be able to activate the resilience that I need to get to the result that we're looking for in the face of any adversity.
So now, because you have a huge heart of service, by the way, and I loved everything you did with as far as helping people struggling with breast cancer and doing breast cancer awareness. And so where did you get that heart of service? Was it from mom? Was it from grandma? Who had the heart of service that you kind of pick up the mantle and started carrying?
My mother, for sure. She is a woman of grace. I'm so blessed to still have her here today. And of course, she'll say, if I asked her the question, she would say, well, it's your grandmother, of course, right? My meme. But my mom came from very humble upbringings, right? She was a family of 5. My meme had literally, I think, a 6th grade education, and 5 children. One, my mother's brother had drowned right the day before his 16th birthday. And then my grandfather passed away. And here's my grandmother left with all of these children with like less than an 8th grade education. And it was her ability to, one, be held and supported by other people, right? The nuns in the convent came around her and gave her work and a sense of security that she needed to be able to keep moving forward. And my mom, I think that the upbringing and the fabric of that just always saw that, being outside of ourselves and how it impacted her life. She's always walked with no judgment. She's always taught us, you respect the janitor is the same as a CEO. And I just watch her, and I've witnessed through all of the years her ability to give back. And many, many years there was no treasure. Writing checks wasn't an option, but it was her time, it was her talent. And I've always learned that it's time, treasure, talent. And I think that when we walk our walk, especially with entrepreneurship, I love this topic because we can do so much good in the world with our businesses, and it doesn't have to be in the form of writing a check, right? For me, I owned an insurance agency, and I knew that, part of team building and getting outside of ourselves is like giving back in the community. I sat on 5 different nonprofit boards, but most importantly, it was using the business as a place to foster good. And so our children, I had 22 women that worked for me at one point, and one of the things we would do is give them personal time that they would be paid for to go out and actually do philanthropy. One chose to go read at a women's shelter and just read to the kids. They all had an opportunity to choose how they would go out and do good in the world. And it wasn't just about me and what I was choosing, right? Many times leaders choose the path. But instead, I activated and said, look, we want to support whatever choice is yours and let you go out in the community and do that, and then made it part of our culture, right? So I think for me, it was that always adopting that we can do good in the world, time, treasure, talent. My employees didn't have to write a check. They could give their time. And then we did things in the community where we were able to bring our children. So, my kids from the time they were 5, they were at Relay for Life. They were out doing the Terry Broder Breast Cancer Foundation. And while they didn't walk the 26 miles, they were the cheerleaders on mile 2 and mile 7 and handing out oranges, and just understanding that, whether it was Soup Kitchen and us, going and stocking shelves at the food pantry, there was a way that I could teach my children and pay it forward as my mother did, in ways that they might have a heart of service as well, right? Because it's not just about what they're going to do economically. It's not what they're going to do professionally. It's like, how do you blend all of that and raise children that are going to be able to stand on their own and live on their own and do good in the world, right? And for me, it may look one way, for them, it may look another. So I love giving the foundation. That's kind of where it started.
And I love that. But so when you were coming up, though, at one point, you were living a dream. You were living. You had the fancy cars. You had the nice vacations. You were living the dream on the outside, but on the inside, you were struggling. And in the checkbook, you were negatives. And I think
I was faking the dream. I was faking the dream, right? I wasn't living the dream. I was living a nightmare. So I left out of the house at 19 years old, right? And thought, okay, I've got my 2-year associate's degree in business administration. I put myself through community college. And so I had to work another 2 years full time to get to that next stage of education. And I happened to just end up switching jobs from hospitality over to financial services and working as an admin, literally answering the phones and file clerk, right? Gal Friday, get the coffee. And I happened to have a mentor who I worked for, who day one said to me, here's a book, you're going to read 20 minutes a day on our time. Okay, you're going to pay me to read? I didn't read in high school, but I was like, okay. And the first book that he handed me was The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. And then the next book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And then the next book, Og Mandino and his salesman book. Yeah. But, while I was in that place of reading, I was literally Visa and MasterCard showed up as my angel investors. That's just in a nutshell. I was 19 years old. The first credit card came in the mail, and I was in this world of financial services and advisory and thinking, oh, well, I'm going to make it, right? I'm going to be here. I'm going to learn my way, but I'll just jump in now. And I jumped in all right. I had every credit card maxed. I had payday loans that, the check came in the mail and had your name on it. And I was like, thank you, universe, right? You're funding my dream. And I had big dreams. And I found myself 3 years later buried in credit card debt, literally unable, I couldn't even charge my groceries anymore, right? And I would leave just enough to charge the groceries and the things that I needed to get through the month. And there was just more month than anything. And eventually the game stops, right? There's no more swaps, APR swaps. There's no more balance transfers. There's no more credit. And I was faced with having to deal with that 3-year journey of faking it till you make it. As so many people say, fake it till you make it. And it was not a normal problem that a 23-year-old had back in the 80s. It was not a normal problem. Today, it's a normal problem. Kids have student loan debt, $100,000. It was not normal to have credit card debt and payday loans at 22, 23 years old. It just wasn't. So I had to get myself out of the chains of guilt, out of the cloak of shame that I had been wearing that no one knew about. And I had to go back to the basics, which is the things that my mother and grandmother taught me, right? That I thought were scarcity mindset and the things that I was like, I'm never going to be like that. And I learned so much with more mature eyes. I was really able to look at the foundational lessons that today I get to teach and walk with people. And they're this. I learned that financial consistency is actually what leads to financial stability. I learned to replace my desire for certainty with a desire for clarity. And I also learned that having a plan, not just big dreams, right? A roadmap and a runway is really a big part of the formula to actually creating success in your life, personal success, financial success. So I learned those really early on, those 3 things, and then working on my mindset, like what made me need to want to keep up with the Joneses? What made me want to put on this persona that I had a nice car and all the fancy vacations? It was truly the changing of my mindset, getting clear about my prosperity blocks, the things that were driving my bus, so to speak. When I got clear and I started doing that inner work around the real things that were going on with Michelle, and thank God I was in my early 20s, I was able to get some things right. I worked on the scarcity mindset. I worked on the prosperity blocks. And then I leapt into adulthood and I was able to take bigger leaps because I got my shit right. You know? Yeah, it was not an easy start.
So, okay. So then, I am a graduate of Financial Peace University.
Yeah.
I had to go through that. I had to go through the whole envelope thing, like my grandmother used to tell me to do. But, our business is solvent. So we don't have any debt. Beautiful. And I think a lot of people, and I did a post about this last week. I said, do not invest in things if you don't invest in yourself in it. And if you have credit card debt, do not start a business if you're already in debt, because it's not going to get any better. So can you talk about that a minute?
Absolutely. One, it's the number one thing, right? So for me as a business strategist, I focus on profitability, right? And so the thing that I see when people come to me, they're not coming to me because they necessarily they need how do they strike gold in their business or in their industry. They're stuck. And many of them find me because they're stuck in this financial like hell. It's hell, right? Because they leapt out of their job and into a business and they thought they were going to be profitable and making the money and funding their health insurance and their retirement. And 8 years later, they still have not put a dime in retirement. And they had retirement growing at the job. And they come into it and they don't have a clear picture of what the lifestyle cost as well as their business overhead. And as an entrepreneur, they're married. Our lifestyles and our business overhead and our business are married together. So what I love to do is go into those places with people to say, before you take the leap, or if you've already taken the leap, it's not too late. But we just have to look at the numbers like it's data, right? Everybody has money stuff. Fear and money for most people are joined at the hip. But if they want to really get on the path to profitability in their business, they've got to change their unhelpful money story. They've got to be willing to neutralize the numbers and look at it like data. And they've got to know that sometimes they're going to be keeping the job or a side hustle in order to activate the runway. You can have a roadmap, but if you don't have a financial runway, you're going to land on the failed business statistic, the 66% fail. So what I say to people is the credit cards, like most people will whip a $30,000 business coach program on their credit card. And that's the answer. That's the answer. That's the thing that's going to make me profitable. And the reality is that as a startup, you're making advanced business investments at the beginning stage, and most likely the return is not going to be what you expect. And now the investment that you made becomes debt. And they're coming to me with stacked amounts of credit card debt. They've used their HELOC, they've drained their 401k, and they're doing all the things that everybody's telling them to do online, and it isn't working. Right?
Okay, so let me ask you a question, because I think we're at episode 1254. I've had millionaires and billionaires come on, and everybody that is successful, there is no race to the bottom for price. And it seems like whenever somebody starts a company, the first thing they do is, I'm going to be cheaper than everybody else. Yeah. Well, you're going to be broker than everybody else. Like for me, my book just came out. It's a bestseller, but I have an ebook version. I have the written version, and then I have my coaching, which is 4 or 5 figures. And sometimes, like Alex, when I talked to Alex and Layla Hormozy, they said sometimes you have to have a stupid offer, because 7% of the people are going to buy that stupid offer. Yeah. And it's going to pay for the other 93%. Yes. So talk about, there's no race to the bottom when you're looking at price, because you can't win if you're just competing on price.
100%. And I made those same mistakes, right? So I exited my insurance agency. I owned an insurance agency and residual, leveraged income month after month after month, year after year, into this new place after retiring from that into consultancy. And I made all the same mistakes that entrepreneurs make, right? You would think with, at that point, 25 years of experience, I was like, oh, I'm going to have a shorter runway. I have all this experience. But the truth is that we come out into the new thing and we're still trying to figure out the price point, who we are. I'm new at this thing called business consultancy. Do you think I was charging my value? I made all the same mistakes that everybody else makes. And then you have to step back and say, wait a minute, why am I doing that for $75 an hour when I look at all of my experience and the financial services and the tax background and the insurance and risk management background? And I know that the point to progress is shorter when people dial up and say, I don't need a coach. I need somebody to help me shorten the timeline. Yeah. Show me the things that I'm not seeing, the strategy pieces. And as a coach, that's what you're doing. You're helping them shorten their timeline to growth. And most importantly, have experience to come to the table to back it up, right? It's like, if you can activate and share your experience, why masterminds are so powerful. You get people in the room willing to give freely and share freely. But I think at the end of the day, they've got to be willing, one, to put in the work, know what the numbers are, to get what is it? They're shooting at a number. They don't even know why. And I truly believe that the vision activates the money. And when I say that, it's your core values. Are you building a business that's aligned with a life that you would love? Or are you giving it all to other people and you're not even seeing your family, right? Been there, done that. And it's looking at your vision. And part of the vision is, what do you want this business to do for you financially? And knowing what the first number is, in the Path to Profits, I actually teach that you set 5 revenue goals, not just one. The first one is, it can't be less than this. It's got to cover my lifestyle and it's got to cover my business overhead. And I say that's when you're opening the container. It's this or something more, but it can't be less than this. And I think that so many people don't take the time to actually figure out that minimum and then what it is they want to create, much like with Dave Ramsey and Financial Peace. You've got 6 steps. Well, I have 5 revenue goals, and before the money gets here, exactly where that next up level, that next milestone is going to go. If someone's first goal is $75,000 to cover their lifestyle and their business overhead, and if they don't have a personal emergency fund, the second goal is that number plus their personal emergency fund. The third goal for revenue is the first number plus the emergency fund for personal plus 3 months of savings for the business. So you can still take a paycheck when something like a pandemic happens. And so there's 5 layers to that. And when you put the time in and it's data, I think that people are clearer about what they need the business to do. They start to align their actions. They're not just doing everything everybody else says to do. They actually start doing the revenue generation activities that will bring in dollars. And they actually won't keep spending dollars to drive that number up until they hit certain milestones.
And as you see, I'm writing stuff down because I got you for 30 minutes, so I'm going to get as much as I can out of you. A lot of people, because I'm a 9th grade dropout, I've read over 6,000 books. I got 18 going right now, plus 2 audio books. And I'm learning business. I'm still learning.
Yes.
And I think the biggest, when I talk to people, is they don't realize there's a difference between revenue and profit.
Mm.
And they're like, oh, well, my company made $5 million last year, but you paid out 4.99 million.
I say
So,
BFD.
what are you actually doing if you're
That's right.
making revenue but no profit? So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I hear those. I see it all the time, right? We see it online, and we see the jets, and we see the Lamborghinis that people are standing in front of. And it's like, I have nothing against great things. I have a vision board here filled with experiences and things that I want to create. Been doing vision boards since I was 20 years old. I'll never stop. I teach it yearly. I host an entrepreneur 3-day weekend, where people come in and actually let me curate them through what are the goals, what are their visions. And the Path to Profits actually was written. It's a DIY version. Alex Hormozi says this as well. You just touched on it. You've got to have a way that people can learn. And at some point, like this is like your book, it's the taste of what it is they need to get. Free, go to the library, download it, borrow it for God's sakes. But for $20, start to learn everything that I do in my 3-day live event, where I curate people through the vision and the goal setting, the revenue strategy, and visibility for their business, sitting right here in this $20 book, right? Yeah. So I think that it requires us to, one, we have so much at our fingertips as entrepreneurs, right? We have the internet, we have videos. We don't have to go and expect that the $30,000 thing that we put on a credit card is going to bring us the results that we want. I've had the benefit of learning from Alex Hormozi, from watching YouTube, reading. I just finished reading his 100 Million Offers, and I'm like mind blown. Have it all, my next thing all scripted out, and how to value add into your offer. It's all right there. It's all right there. But we've got to, one, put the time in, right? Know that we've got to be listening to the right people, and not just the people leasing for the day or renting for the day a sports car. What do they really have for experience? What do they really have for outcome? And the truth is, you're right. $5 million. I had somebody that just called me that's ready to file bankruptcy, and they're doing $3 million of sales, but there's no profitability because they opened a second location and it's draining every bit of profit. And now they've gotten into the MC loans where they're doing daily rate loans. They had to borrow for payroll. So it doesn't matter. I say BFD, right? Like when somebody says, this is what I'm making. Well, what are you keeping? What are you keeping? Are you paying yourself? Are you living on credit cards? Like the first thing is, let's be truthful. You don't have to open your closet to everybody, right? But you also don't need to show the highlight reel only and not be doing the work to get into a better position. The truth is, becoming our own boss is more than daily sacrifice, right? You have to have clarity around who you are, what you want, and where you're going, and then create it. And if you found yourself on the dark road, which we've all done, owed the IRS and didn't have enough money, couldn't make payroll, you've got to be able to look at it with some support and know that it can be better. And not all of the decisions that we've made, this is where that resilience comes in. It's about bouncing back from those setbacks, but then having the persistency to say, I'm going to take action and implement 1 or 2 things that improves your situation.
And I love that. And something, and I loved your and Joe's interview. That was an awesome interview. So thank you, Joe Graham, for the introduction. But your interview with him was fire. But something I want to talk about is that when I have a plumber come to my house, and all he has to do is fix the thing on my toilet, I'm not paying him $300 because of fixing that little chain. I'm paying him for the last 20 years of him knowing how to fix that little chain.
That's right.
Just like when people ask me, well, why do I charge so much? Because, that book that I have, it costs me now up to $100,000 and over 11,000 hours to learn my craft. That's right. What I charge for.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So to have you come to me, that's what I'm paying for. And if I can come to Michelle and say, okay, this is where I need to be, I know you can get me there, and you can get me in all 25 years of everything you've learned, you can help me in 6 months.
Yeah.
Where is the problem with hiring somebody? that can get
Yeah,
you where you're going, you know?
I agree. And I think one of the biggest values that people have when they invest in their growth, right? Whether that's their personal growth, their professional growth, investing is specifically from a business perspective. Look how we met. We met through Joe, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so there's this element of being in the right rooms, connecting with the right people, and knowing that, well, you may, each time that you take that leap of faith and you say, okay, I don't stay humble, right? I always say that, humility is one of my top core values. It's
Yeah.
being humble, being courageous, but being humble enough to know that you're always going to be learning, that you aren't the smartest person in the room, right? I show up to everything that I do with a beginner's mindset because there's so much changing, technology, AI. I mean, there's banking changes, crypto. Like if we thought we knew money before, well, guess what? Now there's NFTs and crypto. What the heck's that? We're always learning. If you show up like you know it all, forget about it, right? You're never going to be open to hearing what you might need to learn to continue on your path to purpose. But I think that, when it comes down to the investment piece, going back to the network, right? Our network is our net worth. We hear that. The truth is that for me, even in that setting, I show up to give. I show up to learn about other people, not sell my services, not to spam a room and like I'm in, what's in it for me? It's like, wait a minute, what can I learn about you? What problem are you trying to solve right now in your business? And then know whether or not I can make an introduction. So it's so interesting. I just had a VIP. Clients will fly into my home in Naples on a Thursday and have dinner Thursday night. They stay with me. And then Friday, half day of strategy. We take an afternoon on Friday and just be together so I can get the whole entrepreneur because I'm listening. What are they talking about when we're not working? What are the challenges, struggles? What are their dreams? And then we do dinner Friday night and we dive back in on Saturday, another half day of strategy. Many times what I'm able to solve is a connection. It's an introduction. It's like literally, I hosted this weekend a client who was here and I said, hey, you've got a jewelry line. Let's do a trunk show and I'll open up my home on Sunday. She did the highest grossing day she's ever done in terms of doing trunk shows in 23 years in that day. So while she made the investment to come, which is not a small investment financially or time, resource of time and money, she earned it back twofold just by saying yes. Because if you're working with somebody who's really invested in your growth of your business, personal, whatever it may be, they're going to see things through and they're going to do what they can to 10x that investment, 2 times that investment.
Yep.
And I think that, a lot of people, you still have to do the work. You can't expect that someone's going to show up and do it for you. You show up and you're already in doubt mode and you don't trust that the person that you've made the investment, you're coming in with an energy that's shitty. And you're just going to be like, what are you going to do for me? How am I going to get value? And it's like that energy doesn't work, right? So you have to be comfortable that you're choosing the right guide and you may not know. It may take 6 months before someone makes that connection, but you can know by talking to other people that have worked with that coach or that consultant to see what their experience was and be listening for the things that they share. I'm a firm believer that you check references. You ask other people that have worked with somebody how their experience was, what they got out of it, and see if it's a match.
And I love it. So I know the last couple of minutes, talk to us. Where do we find your book? And by the way, the book on divorce literally changed my life. I just want to let you know that.
Thank you.
So where do we get those 2 books and how do we get in touch with you? I'm following you on all your social media. So how do we get in touch with you and how do we get your books and coaching from you if you have availability?
Yes. So I do have availability. So the way you found my books, like most people, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, you can go online and just Google Michelle Jacobik and things will pop up. But Amazon, certainly people can have it in their hands tomorrow. Also, there's a Kindle version, so they can download it to their e-reader. Many times, just to speak to prosperity after divorce, many times people don't want to keep that on their nightstand. Most people plan their exit 2 to 3 years prior. And so the book has become this resource for people to pre-think, like if I'm going to have to change my lifestyle and redesign some things, that book is all written through the lens of finance and budgeting. And it isn't just about divorce. I had somebody last week write me an email. They were discarded from their corporate job and found themselves at a crossroad and needed to reboot both let go of some of their, their resentment. And, it brings you through 6 pillars, and it's work and family, emotions, kids, spirituality, financial, but you find the work out there, Amazon. My website is michellejacobik.com. Social, all the platforms from LinkedIn to Instagram and Facebook is simply my name, Michelle Jacobik. So yeah, if you're looking for support, I always say start by reading the book. The audio version of the book will be out next month. I'm very excited about that. But there's a little taste there. And sometimes just following on social media and getting those little nuggets about money and mindset and profitability, you'll know whether or not it's time for you to hop on a call and just have a conversation about whether we work together one-on-one or whether there's a pointed path that I can put you on that would be most supportive.
And guys, make sure you go to the Joe Graham show. Make sure you find her episode. It was fire. It was awesome. So make sure you check that out. Michelle, I just want to say thank you so much. I'm so humbled and grateful, and hopefully we can build a generational relationship from this point forward.
I hope so. And I'm going to give you a plug for your book because I'm on page 27 as of this morning. I got the ebook and it's fabulous. It really is. It's going to just change so many lives in this world. And I hope that your audience and the people that are listening will take a minute and grab a copy and let that book change their life. So
well, God bless you and have an amazing week. And thank you for taking 30 minutes out of your busy day to hang out with us. Have an awesome week.
Yes, you too.
And guys, remember, vertical momentum, the only way to go is up. I love you guys. Have a great day.